Tyler,
Hey,
welcome to the What Fills Your Cup podcast.
thank you for having me.
To start off, what are we drinking today?
I'm very excited for you for this. We are drinking Guinness 0%, celebrating...
Do I have to shake it?
No. This could be interesting now. We had to get glasses because you never drink Guinness out of a can, as you well know. For those of you out there, this is the best, I guess, 0% substitute beer I've ever had.
Oh, stop. I heard something in it, which is why I was like, oh, I gotta shake it.
That went super smoothly. Yeah.
Don't shake it.
And now we can put it back here and let it just chill. And then when it comes to like a nice little... See, it's getting there pretty soon.
That looks good. So my first question for you is I always like to have my guests introduce themselves.
Oh.
So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about your hobbies, where you're from. I know that's just...
No, it's gonna stop moving for sure.
Back to the question.
Yeah.
So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about your hobbies, your passions,
Yeah.
what you do for work, what makes Tyler Tyler.
Well, yeah, I'm Australian. I have my citizenship ceremony here in Canada in 3 days, so it's actually pretty exciting. So I'll be a Australian Canadian in a few days. So yeah, that brings up, I guess, one of the big three things about me. Traveling is a huge thing for me. I'd say my three big passions are traveling, and then anything to do with sport, anything to do with music. Those are my big three. From a work perspective, I run my own business consulting business. So I do. Yeah, thanks. That's been a new thing in the last 12 months, and it's going really well. I've been in a lot of different industries doing a lot of operational sales, people-related stuff. And then just by following my way through this career, I've ended up doing this now, and it's pretty empowering, and it enables me to do a lot of those three things that I just said in terms of lifestyle balance, which is a huge thing for me. Australia's the best place in the world. Let's just get that on here.
On record.
Write that down. It is the best place in the world for many things.
I haven't been, so I can't have an
Highly
opinion.
recommend.
Okay.
Highly recommend.
Do you think now that you're in Canada, you would ever move again and live somewhere else?
100%.
Where?
Yeah. I'm getting asked that question a lot right now because of the citizenship stuff. Oh, what's your plan? What are you doing? But honestly, I don't have any right now. I'm just kind of being very present and doing my thing, which is...
Soaking up the now, which is so important.
Thank you. Yeah.
It's also very exciting. Your work and your life, and you are just Mr. Worldwide.
The one thing we haven't mentioned, which I just want to return this for you for a second, and then we'll try that and watch your reaction. But I had my own mental health... Well, I kind of still do have my own mental health brand or like movement, I guess, that I started in Australia. So everything in that space is very important to me. I live that by lots of different things like painting my nails, and still my business is named after that mental health organization. So I just want to start by saying kudos to you for doing this type of stuff because it's very important. So good for you. So
Ty, thank you. I have to have a follow-up question to that.
Okay.
Is what enabled you to start that business?
Started that because there's so many layers to this, but my childhood wasn't super great in many ways. We're definitely going to talk about the role of therapy in my life, which relates a lot to that stuff. But even before I'd gone down a therapy journey, just beginning to talk about things in my 20s that I hadn't talked about for literally all of my life, particularly the first 20 years of my life, I just realized what a profound impact it had on me. And I just realized as a leader in my community, I was like captain of the footy club and those types of things. You have people that look up to you, and I don't know, I just created this like safe space on my balcony. It's called The Balcony. My business is called Balcony Consulting Co. That started off just as a fun, almost party space, but just realizing that, later in the night, I'd be able to navigate conversations to being a little bit more authentic and a little bit more open. And it was just this wild thing to a lot of the boys in the footy club that I'd never experienced before. And
Wow.
I don't know, it just made an impact. So we started to do targeted events around that where it would lead in as, this fun thing, but it was always, invite your mates who might need it kind of thing. And then it's definitely not gender specific, but around the time when we started it was very much targeted to the guys at the footy club and guys, and which I think is super important and obviously relates to this type of stuff. So I've just carried that couple years in Australia before I moved, and that the ethos of that into, I guess, the way that I move in the world and deal with people now. So
that's amazing. I did not know that, and I absolutely love that. I love that backstory. And that's amazing that as a captain you could recognize maybe your role on the team of being more than just a leader on the team, but as well as outside, and ensuring that your friends that you care so much for are okay outside of maybe the space that they use as an escape, which is their sport. I know for a lot of men, their sport tends to be a form of an escape for them to turn off the outside noise, whatever's going on back at home. So I think that the fact that you provided that and also made it fun and welcoming is incredible, and I absolutely love that you did that.
Thank you. That's very sweet. I appreciate that. Sometimes I think you have to trick guys into, being like,
Tyler thought he was coming over for dinner today. Love the introduction. Love the drink. That was fabulous. And I love that we also got to see a piece of you in your mental health journey, a small sliver.
Yep.
That being said, today's episode, I really want to get a male's perspective on relationships.
Yeah, my specialty. Yeah.
Can be romantic, can be with friends,
yes,
but relationships as a whole, for many individuals, are hard to navigate.
100%.
I would like to discuss a man's point of view on the effects relationships can have on you. Before we dive into this, Tyler, this past year, you have admirably taken the time to work on your well-being and mental health. Through growth and support, what has the past year taught you?
I would say the last 12 months in particular has probably been a reinforcing year. I think the 12 months before that was a very intense transformational year. To give you context, on April 11th, so what's that, in the next month will be my 2-year anniversary of going to hospital for my mental health. So I'd say the first year coming out of that was so much change, and I'd say the last 12 months has been very reinforcing in that space, because coming out of that experience, I'm a very pragmatic person, and I got a diagnosis in that experience, or through that experience, that had been kind of like an aha moment for years and years of trying to figure things out, or trying to improve, or going to therapy. I started going to therapy when I was 25. So I'd been going to therapy for years and years and years to try and work on said childhood stuff. But all the things that led to that experience had really left me wondering, like, why can't I just sort of get through this or get over that? And coming out of that time, I had been given like a very specific treatment plan, and I just dove headfirst into that. So the last 12 months has been, I guess, seeing the fruits of that labor. I did everything from DBT, is a specific type of therapy that was diagnosed, but I did neurofeedback brainwave therapy, I did breath work, you name it. I had a crack at it in that 12 months to really try and figure out what tools were best for me, and how to capitalize on that momentum that I got coming out of hospital. It changed my life. I'd say I became a very different person even within months of that experience. The last 12 months has been really cool to sort of step back and see some of those things that have been embedded in me. Brain rewiring is real. Seeing that in action, even recently, exploring a romantic relationship again for the first time seriously in a long time, and that being a really troublesome space for me. The key theme being like relationships for today. Like, yeah, it's been pretty profound to see how all the work that I did has translated into positive outcomes.
You are so welcoming when people have not necessarily even issues, but if they need advice on to whatever avenue or whatever degree, you are the first to be a set of ears. You always give your very honest opinion, which I love. It might be the hard truth, but in the best way, and also in a respectful manner. You've never been disrespectful in terms of, hey, Ty, I need advice on this. Could you give it to me? It's like, okay, yeah, I'd love to. You're 2 feet in, which I really admire and love. I also think that it sounds as though the past 12 months have been a year of, now all that hard work I have put in, things are starting to line up in a way that I at one point really dreamt of, or could have only imagined at that point.
Yep.
So you should be very proud of yourself.
I am. Thank you. I actually I had my second to last therapy session with the therapist that's been with me on this entire journey yesterday with our last session next week. We both were already getting a little bit emotional talking about that, and yeah.
Like, so wait, now that therapy's over, can we hang out?
Well, yeah, literally. I have had that experience before with a therapist.
You are someone who has been very open about going to therapy. What exactly pushed you to originally take that step in talking to someone, and how has therapy assisted you in becoming the best version of yourself?
It's relationships, to bring it back to that. So the first time I ever went to therapy is because my best friend's now ex-wife's sister that I dated, I was with her for a couple of years. We actually lived together. It's the only person I've ever lived with in that type of capacity. There were just some things that happened in our relationship that brought a lot of the stuff that was clearly still an issue from my childhood to the front of like, well, yeah, you've started talking about it a little bit and you've started to be open about it. I didn't really tell anyone about what happened to me as a kid until I was pretty much around 20. So yeah, I'd had a few years, because I was about 25. So yeah, I've had a few years of like at least acknowledging it and talking about it. I'd cut off my family for very good reasons, so I'd gone through all that type of stuff. But it was just clear through what was presenting in our relationship that if I didn't get serious help or external help, professional help, I wasn't going to go any further. I couldn't go any further.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what you don't know, right? So I am so grateful for her. She was really the catalyst for me to go like, well, I'm going to lose this person if I don't try to figure it out. And I know that you look back and you think about that at times, that you never should do stuff for other people and it should be like internally motivated and stuff. But sometimes whatever that nudge is to get you into that situation is worth its weight in gold. So that was the reality of the situation for me at the time. It was a very reactive decision, but that was my first of, I'm probably into the, I don't know, between 10 and 15 therapists since then, for lots of different reasons and for lots of different shit. So we can go as deep or as
You're like,
10.
so who do we want to call?
Which one do you want to bring up? I think if we're specific around like therapy, like I'm the biggest advocate for it. I wouldn't go as far to say like, I'd never date anyone that hasn't done therapy or sentences like that. But there's something to be said about everyone's gone on some journey where at least being open to some form of help. Maybe it isn't professional, maybe it's something else, but I don't know. I think I'm not a religious person. Awareness is my higher power, if that sentence makes any sense. And I think someone acknowledging that they need help, whatever that looks like, whether it's this or not, is important. But for me, yeah, I've done so many different modalities of therapy over the years, and I wouldn't be this version or that amazing sort of rundown of who you think I am.
You are.
Without all of those different things. And there's so many different ways I could go next with this, because I've done, like I said, DBT is dialectical behavioral therapy. That's the one that I've been in the last 2 years.
Okay.
It's a very specific sort of program. I've done very holistic, meditative type mindfulness therapy. I've done breathwork stuff with a shaman, and I've done every form of talk therapy there is as well. Not to say one's better than the other. It's all different for every person, but yeah, I have a deep range of experience here. So you go next. Where do you want me to go with that?
It's interesting. I will say, I want to circle back to you had just touched, or you had said, I wouldn't go as far as dating someone that has never been in therapy.
Yeah.
A part of me wants to agree with that, but a part of me also wants to disagree with that.
Yeah, that's probably healthy.
But only for the reason that as I've been in therapy since I was 18, and I think therapists can provide that other perspective that maybe you in your individuality can't recognize. However, it is very telling for me when someone has never been to therapy.
Sure.
Because I think there is a bit of a lack of self-awareness.
Yep.
So awareness for you is your higher power.
Correct, yeah.
Which I love that. I have yet to hear that before.
Okay.
What does awareness look like for you?
That's a great question. What does awareness look like for me? First thing that comes to mind is the discussion we were having at your work about the selfishness piece. Do you remember talking about that?
Whispers.
Can everyone stop listening for a second? I feel like unless you've done a lot of the work, and I'm not saying that I've done, that a lot of other people have done in this space, it could be same things I've done on different stuff. You see the world differently once you've done this stuff, I feel like. I feel like people in general are frequencies, and that's why you vibe with people or not, you get along with people or not. But I feel like there's like internal frequencies as well, and I feel like the more work you do, the more that you're in tune with that, and the more that you level up, and you're able to like do things that you wouldn't previously be able to do. I feel like an issue with today's society is everyone's so physical based in terms of like, oh, there's a physical injury, you can treat it, or you go to the gym, you get stronger like that. But that operates, I think, emotionally and in your brain in other ways as well. But I don't think people really see that. When you go and do work like that and you put the time and an effort to that, you become more, ironically, aware of other people around you.
Yeah.
And it's easier to notice, I guess, subconsciously or without it being so obvious or objective that someone hasn't done it because of that frequency stuff, which is a very woo-woo way to answer that question. Awareness unlocks awareness and you become aware of a lack of it, I think. I think there's obvious ways that it demonstrates with the selfishness stuff if someone is like hyper selfish. And I think selfishness is good in a way that the best way you can serve the world is being the healthiest version of you, which takes some level of selfishness because you want to look after yourself. But when you're focused so much on yourself that it starts to detract from others, and that can be as easy as like someone losing their shit in the supermarket to someone taking advantage of someone financially and everything in between. Everyone's born in this world as these big, fluffy, nice things, right? Like as a state of that. And I think all of this stuff where people become like super angry or super unaware of all this stuff is just the trauma and experiences that have been laid on top of them that they haven't worked through yet.
Yeah.
So a big part of what I've learned through doing all the work that I've done is when I see someone that's in that space, to not judge that immediate response, but it's the whole Ted Lasso, be curious, not judgmental thing. It's like, I wonder what got that person there. And that's where the ego comes in. People, who are you to think that thought? But really, I think it's healthier to go like, well, I wonder what led them to that.
I think being self-aware also allows you to create boundaries of, okay, how much can I give someone?
That's really
how
important.
much is someone else maybe taking from me because I'm not self-aware enough to know that they're draining my energy.
100%.
And I think that circling back to our topic, which is relationships, I think at times in a relationship, you might lack that, not you specifically, but in general, people can lack that self-awareness of this person isn't actually filling me with energy. They're draining my energy.
Yeah.
And as a partner, you want to make sure that you can match energies. I'm big on energy. So when you're saying frequencies, I'm kind of taking that as energy. When someone walks into the room, I feel like I have a pretty good judgment of, okay, this person's in a good mood or they're bringing life to the event or space. Whereas some people walk in, I'm like, yo, something happened.
100%.
I think that that's how I am relating, at least to when you talk about frequencies.
Yeah, it can be interchangeable, I think, for sure.
So my next question for you, kind of going to relationships now and talking about that, I would argue that relationships are difficult for everyone. And again, with friendships, relationships, family, extended family, whatever the case may be, they all range to a different level. But what do you believe makes a relationship healthy? And what do you think it takes to maintain a healthy relationship?
Like at the crux of relationship advice, like one of my basic things I say is like, it's hard enough looking after yourself and being a functional individual human being, let alone functioning another one of those fuckers into the situation. Like seriously, like I just look at my own journey individually and think about all that's happened in the work just to be this, let alone doing that with another person intimately in a shared space. Ultimately, like, you don't have to be a fully healed, perfect person to be in a relationship. Like, you don't have to be. You can heal and work through something with someone. But I think knowing at the core who you are, knowing what your values are, one of the best exercises I ever did through the DBT thing, it wasn't even a part of that. It was just like by a book that I read through. It was doing a values-based exercise. Because through the last 2 years, I've read a note every morning, a summary of the therapy like modules, but also I read like what my values are and their I will statements every morning. So it's not just like what the value is, but like how I want to show up in the world. So to answer the question, I think it's like, unless you know that about you, have the awareness for that, and you're someone that's willing to be very honest with yourself and look at the mirror and be honest with yourself in that way, but also be willing to have someone else hold a mirror up to you and accept what that looks like from someone else's point of view. If you're not in that space to be able to do that and be honest with yourself, even if you have shit to work out, that's fine. But if you can't do those things and be willing to be that authentic and transparent and honest, then you're not ready for a relationship. I know that sounds very hyperbolic and black or white thinking, but it comes back to how hard it is just to be with yourself sometimes, it's so unfair to put that on someone else, and you should never put that on someone else, and someone else should never be responsible for that. And that is romantic, that is family, that is friends, that is all that type of stuff. I think my perspective of a lot of this stuff is skewed because I don't speak to my family. I don't have that. I've never had that safe space for that. So I feel like I've had to go on a journey of trying to find that in other places. And I think that up until recently, until I'd done a lot of the work that I've done, I wasn't aware that I was probably asking others for too much in that space without even knowing it, or just not being honest with myself about what I was looking for in some of those relationships or what I needed. And it took for me to really strip myself down, go through what I went through, build myself back up again, go to hospital, do all that over again to get to this point where I think I know myself at that level well enough now and have gone to that real core of who I am to feel comfortable and confident enough that I can explore that with someone else again. I think at core, every core humans needs, like, you need safety, you need to feel like you belong, and that community element and things like that. And I think that's the same in relationships, and it's really hard to build that when you're unstable, you're not sure who you are, you're not being honest with yourself, because that just breeds toxicity in relationships. I think so.
I love that you talked about finding family outside of family. I'm someone that my friends are my family to me, and I do hold them at a very high standard, but I think it's also understanding, okay, what does that standard look like for me, and are they able to fulfill that without me saying, you're not fulfilling that role, or I look at you in this light, why aren't you doing more? I think that circles back to the self-awareness part of, okay, no, wait. That's unhealthy for me to have these expectations without maybe even communicating them properly. Yep. And so I do love that you've talked about your journey of finding family within your friendships, because I think you have built a beautiful support system around you. Your friends are your family, I hope you know, and they love you as if you are a cousin or a brother. And so I'm really proud of you for that, because that takes a lot of work, and that takes a lot of discovery of the self, but also other individuals of, okay, wait, do I want to be your friend? Not actually, but you know what I mean?
For sure.
So I absolutely love that you said that. And I also love that you just touched on growth isn't linear. It's very like some days are better than others. Moments I will feel like I'm at rock freaking bottom, but it's all that is a part of this experience we call life. And I think it's okay to have those highs and lows, and I think you're a very open and safe advocate for that, especially even what you've just shared throughout this episode. I think you're open and honest in the sense that yes, shit has sucked and I'm still kicking it, like I'm good.
It's gonna suck again,
and it will. That's the realistic part of it. But I think you are just thriving. Like, I really do.
I'm in a little thrive zone
you
right now.
are in your thrive era,
It's
and
nice.
I think that's exciting that also you have had a professional, your therapist, tell you that. Like, that's a huge, you must have been like, okay, wait, I'm gonna cry, but I'm also like, wait, I'm proud of myself moment.
Yeah. I mean, it's grounding because a previous therapist, we were talking about this person earlier, had also said that to me in a different era or stage of my life. And that was before I hit rock bottom again. So, I mean, I'm an advocate for, you never know what's going to happen. Rock bottom can also teach you a lot and can be an absolute blessing.
Yeah.
I think if you are able to be grateful for and value the relationships that you have, then there's some confidence that you can get through rock bottom, because I wouldn't be here without the network that I had. And I posted something like on the year anniversary of getting out of hospital. It was very specific to that in terms of like being grateful for the people around me. You were talking about the family thing and friends. Something came to mind that I think is important. And I was talking to a close friend about this recently because of what he's going through. He was asking me for advice related to his relationship, his romantic relationship, and what he should do and why and why not. And I just sort of said to him, I was like, are you thinking that that's the right thing to do because it's the best thing for her and the both of you? Or do you think that's the right thing to do because really that's what you need right now and you're not thinking about the rest of that? Yeah, it floored him and changed everything that he did. But that's an awareness piece right there. I think a really cool skill to develop is before you make any decisions when it relates to relationships, could be romantic, could be friends, could be professional, could be work, is to like, where is this coming from? Is my urge to send that text message because I'm actually in a really good place with that? Or I'm trying to control the situation, and sometimes even if the answer is one of those things, it still could be the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Knowing the motivation for that is important either way.
100%.
And that's the power of awareness. And I think you must really start to learn more about yourself, asking those questions about yourself. And it makes such healthier relationships.
Oh, yeah.
Slowing down and doing
I
it.
also love those questions that you asked him or put into his mind of like, okay, is this what you need? Or is this what you, like, how are you going to guide this? And what is it that, circling back to your friend, touching on this whole topic? Because you are someone that, like I've mentioned, your friends come to for advice. If you were to give someone advice on one thing that has assisted you positively, mental health-wise, what would that advice be?
I've talked about awareness a lot, but how you can actually apply that, I think mindfulness, and it has been meditation for me. It can be so many other things. And I will just say this to the people out there. A lot of people get those two. They're not interchangeable. You can do mindfulness practices that aren't meditation. I feel like some people think that, oh, that's the only thing and that's all I need to do. But if you're confused about that, look into that. But I think mindfulness practices, for me, it was meditation. Routinely, when you are doing well, trying to build habits of doing those things is almost a cheat code to being able to deal with the tough stuff that happens, or when things are heightened, or when things are really shitty. And understanding that it's just like sport. I've done a lot of education, done an MBA. I've never learnt more from just my sporting career than I have from anything else. It taught me so much. And one of those things is like preparation and training. But training when things are going well, doing things that feed your soul in a good way when things are going well, is the best way to actually prepare yourself to handle things when they're not going well. And they are gonna go bad. There's gonna be times where they don't go well. So even right now, with this little thriving period that I'm in, I'm still doing my daily practices. I still read my notes. I still meditate. I'm still thinking about what is the next form of therapy I will do, because I think being responsive, not reactive, towards your mental health is one of the the most important things that you can do, and super empowering too. Something that I never done, and I think that maybe I'm in a place to do it moving forward, particularly with some of like the lifestyle changes I've made recently and whatnot, is I've started dating someone. It's going super well. Talking to people about how that's going, I remember saying to her, I was like, well, why don't you tell me what you tell your best friend about it? Like, why don't you tell me the way that you describe this situation to your best friend? And that's been super helpful in just having open dialogue. But what I think would be a really cool thing to start doing for myself is like, and I wish I'd done this earlier on in my life, and I think of my best friend in this sense, particularly with whether it was my relationship with alcohol or relationships that I've had in the past, is to just be willing to literally sit down and be like, I want you to tell me the absolute brutal truth about where I'm at right now, or how I'm going with this. Because I've realized through other things that have happened in my friends' lives, there's been points where something will happen and you'll be like, yeah, well, we've thought this, or we were thinking that, and it's just like, to be able to be in a personal space where you'd be willing to accept that type of feedback from someone, I think like that would change the world, I think. So
that's really, really, really good advice, especially as a woman. Like, hearing that, I feel at times there's so many times I can look back and be like, oh, well, I just agreed to agree because I didn't want to hurt her feelings. But then she finally comes to maybe the reflection time, and it's like, I don't know if I agreed that. And then you're sitting there saying, I don't know if I actually agreed with you. It's like, why didn't you tell me that from the beginning? Or vice versa, like whether someone's telling that to me. But you never will as your friend.
You never will do that the other way. And that's great, because you never should inject yourself like that. But I think being willing to really ask for that, like, but being and mean it.
I need you to be brutally honest. That's really, really, really good advice. Like, I really liked that answer. Okay, Ty.
Okay.
Beautiful answers. Now you know what's coming.
I'm ready.
My last question for you is one I ask all of my guests to end the episode. What is your favorite thing about yourself, and why?
So my default answer was going to be my resilience. Not everything that's happened to me, but the situations I've put myself in at times, and just what I've been able to get through. But I thought about it a little bit more deeply. I think my favorite thing about me that's related to resilience is my ability to stay hopeful. And I don't know, it's at the point now after all these years if I even came up with it or if I stole it from someone, but like the saying or the phrase like hope is a dying art is something that I genuinely believe in. I feel like what I'm most proud of is despite everything, I've maintained that, and it's an incredible feeling to hope for the best or be able to think positively, particularly when things continue to go wrong. You know, even recently there's been stuff with my work that was a big curveball, and the way I've just been able to navigate that after everything is something that I'm super proud of, and that is probably that sort of deeper level, the resilience, that hopefulness, and that's something that I wish for everybody. I hope that everyone can find a way that if they're not feeling that right now, use some of these tools or use some of these discussions or ask me anything to find that space, because it's a nice feeling to have. So
I love how caring you are. Something that I don't know if you give yourself enough credit for is how caring of an individual you are. And not just towards yourself, but also to other people. You always have your friend's best interest at heart. And maybe sometimes to a fault, you put other people before yourself. But I will say you are, we've said this word a few times, but thriving. But you truly are. I have loved getting to know you the past few years, and I feel that every year we see one another or catch up or hang out. We see each other more than once a year, I promise, but every time is so, you fill my cup. You truly make me so happy, and you're a little golden retriever puppy dog in the bestest
Me?
way ever. Yes, you.
from a golden retriever, that's the best.
But I really just hope you know that you carry yourself with such elegance and grace and respect of other individuals, and I really just hope you know how amazing of a person that you are inside and out, and I just love everything about you. Be sure to check out Tyler's social media if you would like to keep up to date with his life, the life of Ty. Link will be in the description box below. Before I sign off, if you haven't heard it today, I love you, and don't forget to tell someone you love them, because you never know who needs it a little extra. Any final words?
Amen to that. Riley, you're a superstar.
Oh.
I love you so much.
I love you.
I'm so grateful to be sitting here. It's been amazing to watch your journey, and I'm excited for everything else that you accomplish. And we're going to hug so hard after this.
Let's go eat pasta!